Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Speak softly and carry a big stick." Good afternoon, my name is Timothy I. Today I will attempt to persuade you that the President should not have the sole power to deploy the U.S. Armed Forces without congressional consent. I will be using a map of Vietnam, a copy of the War Powers Act, and a map of the Middle East to aid and support my standpoint on the issue. My first item is a map of Vietnam. The United States was involved in a conflict in Vietnam for around a decade. From the years of 1965 to 1975, the U.S. Armed Forces lost an estimated 58,000 U.S. troops. According to Khan Academy, Nixon ultimately expanded the war into neighboring Laos and Cambodia while simultaneously encouraging the Vietnamization of the war effort, which entailed the gradual withdrawal of U.S. troops and an increasing reliance on the South Vietnamese armed forces. However, this was not possible. Once the U.S. withdrew its troops, the South quickly fell to the North and was united under one communist country. The Vietnam War was a war that the United States was drug into after the USS Maddox was attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin. President Johnson went to Congress to request troops to be sent to Vietnam. Congress essentially gave President Johnson a blank check. They authorized him a 90-day police action. However, it turned into a 10-year war that was costly in money and lives. My next item is a copy of the War Powers Act. The War Powers Act was voted into law by Congress in 1973. According to History.com, the War Powers Act was designed to limit the U.S. President's ability to initiate or escalate military actions abroad. The law required the President to notify Congress within 48 hours of any foreign military operations. The purpose behind the War Powers Act was to prevent another president from getting the country into another long-standing conflict such as the Vietnam War. Lastly, my third item is a map of the Middle East. In 2003, President Bush ordered the U.S. military to invade Iraq. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, Bush called the invasion the opening stages of what would be a broad and concerted campaign. Within a month of the invasion, the U.S. had already captured Baghdad and toppled Saddam Hussein's regime. A few months later, Hussein was found hiding in a hole. He was captured by the U.S. Armed Forces and turned over to the Iraqi people. Saddam was sentenced to death for crimes against humanity. After Saddam's regime was toppled, the U.S. set up a democratic Iraq with free elections. They also initiated the drafting of a constitution, which in turn took years to ever be actually drafted. It appeared the people that the U.S. liberated never really wanted freedom after all. They really just wanted their turn at power. The U.S. finally withdrew its forces from Iraq in 2011 after 8 years of combat operations. The Taliban were defeated, however, a new enemy would soon rise from its defeat. The Islamic State would soon recapture the territory the U.S. had given back to the Iraqi people. Military airstrikes and raids are still carried out today and are extremely effective at defeating major threats toward national security. In conclusion, the current system of deploying the U.S. military is very effective. The President can deploy troops in emergencies for a short term. However, Congress has to approve any long-term military operations. This helps to avoid incidents such as the Vietnam War, where there's a lot of money and a lot of lives spent and wasted trying to accomplish a goal that's never going to be reached. The visual representations that I've used today are a map of Vietnam, a copy of the War Powers Act, and a map of the Middle East. They portray great reasons why the President and Congress should share the power to deploy the U.S. Armed Forces. In the words of Margaret Atwood, war is what happens when language fails.